We got this from Daily Mail. Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary slams mega loser state New York over $355 million Trump verdict and says it will drive business out of the state. So most of you probably know by now because, Stephen Colbert went nuts on his show complaining about it. But Trump's been ordered to pay $354.9 million. They claimed it was fraud. I'll give you the simple version. Why is it fraud? So Donald Trump is trying to get loans. He wants to build a building. So he goes to the bank and says, look, I need, let's say $100 million. And they say, okay, we'll give you $100 million, but what's your collateral? How can you back up this loan in the event you don't pay? And he says, I got this building over here. It's worth $100 million. They look at it and they go, I don't know. That's got to be 70. And he goes, trust me, it's worth 100. Here's why. And they go, okay, fine. Here's your loan. They give him a loan. He builds a building. New York argued that because he claimed the value of his building was higher than what they think, it's fraud. I'll give you a better example of how we know this verdict is total BS. They claimed Mar-a-Lago, which is, it's got to be $1 billion property. They said it was $20 million. You know that's wrong because next door to Mar-a-Lago is a plot of land about a tenth the size of Mar-a-Lago for like $30 or $40 million.
Wow.
So, right. So in New York, they're just outright lying. So Kevin O'Leary, he's a real estate developer. This is crazy because he's talking about the biggest game right now in real estate is data centers because everybody needs a data center, like all this new tech. And so you need a big power source. And he was like, New York's got Niagara Falls. They can generate a lot of power. You want to build a data center up there. Plus, I'm sure there's something with keeping it cold. And he goes, New York's out. I won't do business in New York. So this is where it gets crazy. The governor actually had to come out and reassure business owners over what happened because they're scared and threatening to pull out. Kevin O'Leary's already done. He's a TV personality. So he's going to be on TV saying it. Imagine how many other investors are like, I'm not going to do business in New York. Think about this. No matter what your business is, the state will just lie, accuse you of fraud, and steal your money from you.
Right.
Why do business in New York? So Kathy Hochul, the governor, comes out. This is Sunday. Guardian reports saying you have nothing to worry about after Trump was fined. It's a one-off thing. Law-abiding and rule-following New Yorkers who are business people have nothing to worry about because they're different than Donald Trump and his behavior. The only problem, everybody knows, that's not true. Trump did not do anything wrong. So let them reap what they sow, I guess. There you go. That's the news.
Did she come out in response to Kevin O'Leary, or did he make a video after this comment?
He's been doing several interviews where he's like freaking out. He's like, I don't understand what's going on. How does this happen? And even in the trial, when they're trying to determine how much Trump had to pay, the people who lent Trump money were like, he did nothing wrong. We loved what he did. Right. We got rich from him and we like him. And they were like, that doesn't matter. He committed fraud.
I got this friend last night who's he would even consider himself like a leftist. He'd be like, he's progressive leftist Portland guy or whatever. And he's like, I want Trump to get what he has coming to him with all this stuff. But there's something weird about the way all this stuff is coming right now before an election where he's trying to run.
Right.
That it seems bad. And I'm like, yeah, it is. I agree with you. It does.
In one of the clips from Kevin O'Leary is a guy from Shark Tank, right? In one of the clips, he says, I know that Trump has a whole bunch of other court cases or whatever against him. I don't care. I'm not pro or con or whatever, but this one makes no sense. And I'm like, Kevin, they're all like that. None of them make sense. It's just that he's a real estate developer. So he sees this and goes, whoa, they're framing Trump. They're lying about this. Now imagine everything else they're doing to Trump.
Exactly. If they can lie about this one, what else did they fucking lie about?
Everything.
It's so crazy because when you look at a state and a city like New York City's failing just like LA. They since COVID exposed a lot in both of those cities, and you can also use other cities as an example, but I lived in LA. And when you get fascinated by the views and the weather and the things that there are to do in LA, you kind of overlook all the bullshit that's actually happening in LA. And once you have to sit at home and deal with everything, then you kind of look like, damn, this is really a shitty ass city. There was so much, what do you want to call it? Mental health issues going on in LA.
I was going to use a worse word than that.
I'm trying to be careful. I'm trying to be careful. But there was so much BS going on in LA during all of COVID to where it's like this is a disgusting city to live in. I always love LA because since I was a kid I wanted to live there. But the way it's ran politically, that city has not been the same since we had Mayor Villaraigosa, who they considered a criminal. And when you talk about running a metropolis like LA or a metropolis like New York, can you really be a righteous motherfucker to run a city like that?
Can we say feces spattered cesspit? I'm trying to be mean enough, but here's the trick on YouTube. If your insults are academic, they let it go. So if you like cuss at someone and call them like a really like bad word, YouTube's like, whoa. But if you say something like,
fecal palace,
smattering of
fecal palace.
Do you think that you got to be a nasty dude just to get control if you're going to be like govern a city like that?
I don't think it's nasty, but the balance is both having good and bad, right? And I like to talk about the duality in life all the time. And when you have a city like LA, it's not just ran on morality, right? Because as you see, when they made it not a felony to steal, what do we have in LA? Criminals started getting smarter. So in order to go do smash and grabs, they would take 20 to 30 people with them and grab $20,000 worth of stuff. So nobody's charged with a felony. That's how you get more intelligent to still be a criminal.
You know what they do in Chicago? Because this happened to me like 10 years ago. They quote unquote panhandle. So a guy comes up to you with something in his pocket pointed at you, and he says, "Hey, can I get $100? Can I get $100? What do you got in your wallet?" And then what happens is people just panic because you're told by the police, hand over your money when someone wants it. When they call the cops, what happened? They say the guy came up to me and he told me to give me my money, and they're like, okay. If they ever catch the guy, he was like, that's not what happened. I asked him for money, and he said yes. Then the police are like, what did he ask you? Like, well, yeah, he said, can I have money? And I said yes. And they're like, sir, he's a panhandler. You can't accuse him of mugging. So now the muggers, they mug you while being like, can I have your money, please?
That is
genius. Like,
yeah. On the
I mean, you got to give it to them.
Wow.
With those smash and grabs, though, that would be conspiracy. That should be charged as conspiracy if 20 guys each take $1,000.
I mean, but dog, look, prior to all this BS, one of my favorite cities was San Francisco. You could fly up 45 minutes to San Francisco and get an escape out of the hustle and bustle in LA because it's really a tech city. Nobody cares about, entertainment or stuff like that. And it's kind of just a real city with good Chinese food. But now I don't even do shows there because I was doing a show in Spokane, Washington, and my rental car got broken into.
Wow.
And they stole my suitcases, and I don't want to file through insurance.
Yeah.
So here I am out of $3,000. I got to replace the window and replace all the stuff that was in the car.
Was it in the trunk? Did they bust it open and pop the trunk?
Yeah, it was a Jeep Wrangler.
Man. So they couldn't see it in the trunk? They just went and looked through the trunk?
They broke the glass, but the way one of my suitcases was situated, I wedged it in between the back seat and the tailgate, so they couldn't take that one out. But everything on top, they mostly got dirty clothes. So they had to wash the clothes before they actually sold them or wore them.
They're probably wearing them, walking around right now.
Yeah, it smells like him too.
You're gonna see that guy from the Biden administration on TV wearing the clothes. You remember that?
Hilarious. See him in a 3X that's too big.
What kind of mental health degradation did you notice in LA while you were living there?
I mean, what was that president name that took away the mental health stuff? Reagan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you go to a certain part, so when I first moved to LA, homeless people and kind of like anybody with any type of mental health issues was very concentrated to an area downtown known as Skid Row. And, it would kind of, sometimes it would seep over into 2 or 3 blocks because I used to live on 5th and Spring, which is maybe like 3 or 4 blocks away from Skid Row. So every now and again you get one straggler that left the Queen.
That's like downtown.
Huh?
That's like downtown, like center downtown, right?
Yeah, it's center down.
Yeah.
So I used to live on 5th and Spring, and every now and again you get a couple of stragglers, and we have some cool homeless people or people with mental issues. Like we had a pirate that was real famous when I first moved there, and he would just come to the bar that I would go to all the time. We'd buy him a beer, and he'd be cool as shit. But after COVID, it started spreading, because there's nobody's outside to police these people. There's no governing body. So then you start, like, I was living in Studio City at the time, and then I moved.
That's in the Valley?
Studio City's in the Valley, yeah. So I was living in Studio City, right? And I was living on like Ventura and Vineland. We didn't have any type of stuff like that. Like there was no tent city in Studio City. There was no real. I mean, you catch a few homeless people on Ventura Boulevard, but that shit's so far away from all the shelters and stuff. They really don't get too far away from where they need to be to, possibly sleep at night if it's too cold or rainy. But during the pandemic, dude, I remember one time me and my oldest daughter, were walking to Rouse because there was a route to go through Rouse where you had to like cut through a few apartment buildings, and then instead of like walking all the way up Vineland and then going down Ventura, you can cut through a few apartment buildings. And we went down that we went through the shortcut, and tents were everywhere, just junkies laying everywhere. Some dude with his meat just hanging out, just laying. And I'm like, man, I'm like, baby, close your eyes.
Wow.
Like I'm not, because like, what type of world do we live in where you can't walk to the grocery store with your kid?
Yeah.
Did LA release a lot of prisoners at COVID? I remember they beat the lockdown
Probably.
because in New York they did. They just released everybody.
I think that's a lot of it too, because they started unloading the prisons.
Yeah.
And so we're asking ourselves, like, where all these homeless people come from?
Arkham.
They basically cut loose all of the, like, look, the people who are in these jails, many of them are probably mentally ill. And that results in them doing things like exposing themselves, or like they're going to find themselves getting arrested for some kind of like social order or disorderly conduct kind of thing. Then when COVID comes, like, oh, we can't keep these people locked up, so we got to release everybody.
Right.
They're going to go join the 10 cities. But I think a lot of it might be too, they shut a bunch of businesses down.
Yeah.
And I heard stories, I don't know to what degree the homeless people explosion we've seen throughout the country, because it's everywhere, is because of this. But I have seen like those YouTuber interviews, like maybe, I don't know, people will go on the street and they'll film people. And there was one I saw where it was like a guy and a woman who looked like they were in their 50s and they looked ragged. And they were like, oh yeah, we just worked like low income jobs, but when COVID stopped, we lost our income and we just became broke and homeless.
Right.
And so they just were like, it's easier for us now. We live in a trailer on the street with all these tents everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I get that part. There's a lot of people who strive low in life and probably take advantage of a lot of, government assistance type shit. And when COVID came, those bottom level jobs were out. So they had, but I mean, like, dude, like if y'all follow like the Instagram account, like Street People of Los Angeles, there was a dude living on Sunset Boulevard who had a whole fucking tarp.
The apartment thing that he built?
Yeah, he had a whole apartment with
crazy.
He had more shit in his tarp with electricity probably running. Well, it had to be running illegal. How else did he have an essential core? Running illegal electricity to power a TV. Had a living room, kitchen.
Did he have other people living in there with him? Was he like renting it out?
Who knows? Probably.
If this kind of stuff continues, I predict that we will see abandoned buildings will become, it'll like a shift in some pseudo ownership will occur, where the building like the people surrounding the buildings in these homeless areas become untenable. Like you can't run a business out of it surrounded by homeless people, so they abandon it. Nobody wants to buy it. The property value goes to zero. The guy stops paying tax on it. It becomes abandoned. You go to Chicago, you drive on I-55, you're going to see abandoned buildings just like to your left. And you're like, I wonder why that building's abandoned. You drive down to like, you go towards, I don't know if people know where the Burnham skate park is, but when you go down there, there's a bunch of old abandoned factories, paper mills. What's going to happen is homeless people just take them over. They're going to take them over and they're going to turn into like pseudo ownership, like buildings, and the government will not get involved. Police will not get involved. In fact, they'll probably be happy about it because it takes some of these homeless people off the streets, but it's going to create a weird parallel society. Maybe not like, I don't mean literally as big as mainstream society, but this is a phenomenon that happens around the world. You end up with, I'll give you an example, is the favelas in Brazil and South America. You end up with these shanty towns. That's what favela basically means. People build what they feel like building, where they feel like building it. There's no regulation. There's no governance. So like 10 years ago, when the World Cup was coming to Brazil, the government was like, we have no control over the favelas because we just let this parallel society grow. So there's gangs that run it. So they went in with these groups called the Core and the BOPI, I think they were called. This is like the acronyms. basically dudes with rifles who went in and started arresting and killing the de facto governance of it. And then they called it a pacification. We're going the opposite.
Yeah.
Skid Row and these homeless camps are going to turn into shantytowns where the police are going to leave. No cop is going to be like, I'm going to arrest a homeless guy. Why? What's that going to do for
No
you?
reason. Right.
Homeless guys are going to be like, doors open. Why sleep outside when I can sleep inside and there's no cops? Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.